Hello students, how are you all doing? Hope all of you are doing good at your home, taking care of yourself and your family members also. Students, from today we are going to start with the software testing tutorials. From yesterday itself we have started with the online sessions of other subjects also. So you must be knowing the structure of our sessions. For those who don't know the structure yet, I'll just repeat how we will be going through. So students, your entire session will be of 40 minutes for every subject, and these 40 minutes will be divided into two parts. In the first 20 minutes, you will be getting a recorded video on the YouTube that you have to watch, and in another 20 minutes, you will be having a live Q&A sessions with your faculty person. I will recommend every one of you to have your notebook readily available with you, so that whenever you will have any questions, you can just note it down in your notebook, and later on during the live Q&A session, you can get them sorted out from the particular faculty member. Also, at the end of every session, we will give you two assignments. One assignment will be on the Google form, so that will be multiple type questions, multiple choice questions, MCQ type questions will be there, that you have to submit by the end of the day, and another assignment will be there which will be a descriptive type. So we will give you that through mail, and then you have to write down those questions and answers in your assignment book, and whenever you will come physically into your college, you have to submit that assignment book to your faculty member. So hope the structure is clear to everyone. Okay, so all set. Now we are ready to dive into the subject, software testing. So first we will see what MSBT expects from us from this particular subject, that what we should learn out of it. Let's have a look on our syllabus. So in the software testing, so the rationale behind learning this subject is to deliver a bug-free and a good quality software to our customer. Now, when you go into any software industry, you will find there are two verticals which are majorly playing role over there. The first vertical is called as a software engineering vertical or a development vertical. So, over there, development work goes on. And there is another vertical which is called as a quality assurance or quality control team, or sometimes you may call it as a testing also. So the role of that department or the vertical is to ensure that the software should be delivered to the customer in the good or the best quality without having any bugs in it. So the rationale behind learning this subject is to understand what is the importance of giving the software in the best of its manner without having any bug, and how to ensure the good quality. So we should note the importance of that. So the competency part. So in the competency, the aim of this course is to help the student to attain the following industry identified competencies. So basically we have certain outcomes which are being expected after learning this subject. So what is the importance of testing? Then how to apply various software testing methods, then how we will prepare test cases for the different types of the testings, then prepare the test plan, identify bugs to create defect report of given application, and test software for performance measures using automated testing tools. So after learning this subject, you should be able to test the software in the scientific manner. Then this is a teaching and examination scheme. So you will have a 70 marks paper at the end of the semester. Also, you will have a practical of 25 marks. Okay, so let's get into the course map. We will see after learning this subject, you will be able to map this competencies with the different course outcomes and the practical outcomes. So I think we should get started with the actual subject now. Now, first we'll try to understand the importance of this subject, and for that purpose, I am going to take you through some case studies. But before we will actually get into the case studies, let's consider a very simple example, an example of our home. Consider you are going to have a guest at your home and you want to impress them with a recipe. You are very good at cooking and you want to impress them with your cooking skills. Now there are hardly any chances that you will have a guest at your home very often or soon afterwards. But consider that you have a guest at your home and you want to impress them with a new recipe. The dish that you want to serve them is not known to you, is not yet clear to you, and you have never tried it before. Consider you want to serve them a kofta curry. Okay, so now you don't know the ingredients, you don't know the recipe, and you don't know anything about it. What you will do? The very first thing that you will do is you will grab the book, recipe book, or probably you will Google it and then you will have the recipe. You will follow all the recipe, you will read it first, and accordingly you will follow entire things, and accordingly you will cook the food. Now consider the one thing that you have prepared the new dish and guests are there in front of you. They are very hungry and they are sitting in the kitchen, and now you are in hurry. Okay, because already the dish was new to you, so it took a little bit of time for the preparation, but after a certain time you prepared it. And now guests are waiting for your dish, and after immediately cooking, you are now serving them. Okay, once you have served it, let's say suppose there are 5 guests and some family members, all they are sitting and you are serving them the dish. You serve the dish and now you are waiting for their first reaction, that whether that dish was really good, whether they liked it or not. You are waiting for their reaction, and after a while you understood there was a reaction from your guest that this particular dish was having little bit less salt. Actually you forgot to put the salt in your dish. Now probably it can happen when you are preparing it for the first time. You don't understand the ratio because you have to scale it up. The recipe book was actually stating it only for the 2 or 3 people, and now you have to scale it up for the 10 people. And when you scaled it up, there was a problem in proportions. So because of that, you didn't have the exact guess that how much salt you should put into the dish. And that's why now the problem is that it doesn't have any salt, or the salt is less. Now what will be the reaction? The very first reaction from your guest will be, it is disappointing, isn't it? Actually you wanted to impress them, but now they are not impressed at all because your dish is not that tasty that you were expected. Now the point is, what you will do, you will take the salt in your hand and you will serve that salt to everyone. Now how much efforts you will need to put in over here? Consider when that dish was being served, at that time if you would have thought how much salt you have to put in, according to that proportion you would have put that particular salt into the dish. Certainly it would have taken less efforts from your side. Now what you have to do? You have to go across to each and every one of your guests and you have to serve the salt, and that too with a very embarrassing feeling, because you are now embarrassed. The way that you wanted to put on the impression on your guest is no more, and now you have to take some extra efforts to sort it out, isn't it? So why did that happen? Why did that took place? The reason behind, you didn't taste it. Consider a scenario after preparing that dish, you would have tasted it. If you would have tasted it properly, and at that time itself you would have understood that dish is having less salt, you might have added some salt in it, and that embarrassing feeling that you are having now would not have happened. The same thing is over here. Why we wanted to test anything? So when the things are in your customer's hand, and if your customer will find out the fault in it, then obviously it's very bad, it's embarrassing, isn't it? It is disappointing your customer, because the customer was expecting, or it will always expect, the good things from you, and what you have served them is a substandard or not to up to mark things. So it is always suggested, or rather it is recommended, that you should test the things that you are going to deliver, and then only after having the satisfaction internally that the things are really doing good according to your expectations, then only deliver it to your customer. Now we will start with some of the case studies. And the first case study that we are going to start with is a Mars polar lander. Both these case studies are associated with the NASA. In both of these case studies, the lander or the orbiter from the NASA crash landed onto the Mars surface. The reasons were very different, but one of the common point in them was the software failure or the program failure. In the first case, the Mars polar lander, now the scenario was like this. What they had to do, there was a spacecraft to which the polar lander was attached. The spacecraft was supposed to take that lander into the Mars orbit, and once it will there into the Mars orbit, spacecraft would detach from the lander, and then Mars lander will take a orbit around the Mars. So it will just rotate around the Mars for a certain time. It will slow down its speed, and then it will land onto the Mars. This was the plan. Now what actually happened? They launched it. The spacecraft took the Mars polar lander into the Mars orbit. They released it into the orbit. Now there was a situation where a person or the scientist from the control room from the Earth station has to enter the data which will be sent to the polar lander, and accordingly polar lander will change its orbit. This was the plan. Now the scientists were actually entering the data. The data was being sent from the Earth station to the space station to the polar lander, and lander was interpreting that data, and accordingly lander was changing its route. Now what actually happened? They were actually planning for the safe landing, but they actually crash landed. And when the investigation started, they figured it out. Everything was working fine. From the Earth station, the data was being entered properly because the scientists were actually observing the entire environment around the Mars, and accordingly they were entering the data. Similarly, the data which was being received onto the polar lander, it was actually also correct. But despite of all that, the landing was unsafe. They actually crash landed onto the Mars surface. So when they started the investigation, they found out the result, what they found out was very astonishing. Because of the cost cutting, what they did, they actually adopted two different programs. They actually had another old program for the polar lander, and they developed a new program for the Earth station. And when they developed two different programs, they actually didn't check their integrity. So these both programs were working on the different number systems. Now at that time there were two number systems which were actually prevailing. The one of the number system was the metric number system, and another one was the imperial number system. The Earth station was actually using a metric number system, and the lander, polar lander, was actually using another number system, that is the imperial number system. They actually worked on the testing also, but the teams were different. The team which worked on the Earth station, they never thought that there will be another number system on the another end, so they actually tested the entire software with the metric number system only. The another testing team which actually took the testing of the polar lander, they considered there is an imperial number system, So they worked on the imperial number system only, and they figured out everything was okay with the polar lander also. But they never tested the integration of these two. So what happened? The figures which were being entered from the Earth station were getting translated into the imperial number system in a very different manner. The system on the polar lander was treating that as the imperial numbers, and it was maneuvering according to that. And because of these miscalculations, that lander landed onto the Mars surface very drastically, very fast, and it was actually a crash landed. It was unsafe landing, and because of that, millions of dollars were lost. So this is because of lack of testing. Had they tested it properly, it wouldn't have happened. So this is the first case study. Now let's observe what happened in the second case, in the Mars Climate Orbiter. It was also crash landed onto the Mars surface, but here the reason was different. Now here what happened, in the Climate Orbiter, they actually divided the entire orbiter into multiple stages, and these stages were manufactured at different locations, and these were tested by the different teams. This is usually done to reduce the cost and to speed up the manufacturing. So accordingly, 3 different stages were manufactured at 3 different sites, and another 3 different teams were testing them. So here this particular part, if you are observing, this is not an actual picture of Climate Orbiter, but I have taken it for the reference. So consider this is a part where they installed some sensors, and these sensors were sensing the speed and the velocity of the landing. And there was this another part who was actually responsible for opening up the legs of the lander. Also, it was responsible to shut down the thrusters. Means if they have to land onto the Mars surface, in order to slow down their velocity, these thrusters will be opened up so that it will slow down, and the legs will be opened up so that it will land onto the surface properly. Now what happened in this case, as these 3 units were manufactured at 3 different locations and 3 different teams, testing teams were working on them, they never had a collaboration with each other. So one team assumed that another team will consider something, and accordingly they will work upon. They never had a proper communication between them, and that resulted into the failure. Now what actually happened, there were some sensors installed over here. Now when this climate orbiter was supposed to land, this sensor will send some signals to this another part where the thrusters will be shut off and the legs will be opened up so that it will land onto the surface. Now there was only a 1 bit error over here, and that single bit caused the entire failure. It was actually resulted into millions of dollars loss. So this particular thing was setting a bit by understanding, by sensing the speed and the velocity. It was setting up a bit, and that bit was sent to this particular part, which will shut off the thrusters. Considering the orbiter has landed properly on the Mars, it was shutting off the thrusters and opening up the legs, and then the entire procedure was done. Now what happened over here, because of some issues, this particular team was actually sending a bit after the testing, and this particular team was actually resetting their computers and reinstating the entire testing process. So because of this communication gap, the problem happened over here. When the 1 bit was set by this particular part, after sensing it, it was sent over here, and this particular part assumed that the orbiter has landed onto the Mars surface. But it wasn't landed. It was 1000 feet above the Mars surface. So when the orbiter was still 1000 feet above the Mars surface, the bit was set over here, and this part assumed that we have landed onto the Mars surface. So it turned off the thrusters, opened up the legs. But when it was 1,000 feet above, actually it should have been done when they were very close to the Mars surface. But they did it when it was another 1,000 feet above the Mars surface. So when they were 1,000 feet above the surface, this unit assumed that it is actually landed onto the Mars surface. So it actually closed the thrusters, opened up the legs, and it was assumed that it is now landed. So it turned off the thrusters when the 1,000 feet above they were on the Mars surface. So because of the thrusters were off on 1,000 feet above, it lost entire speed. When it was actually supposed to be slowed down, it didn't slow down. It came crash landing onto the Mars surface, and this entire thing actually turned into the small pieces. That entire orbiter was actually turned down into the small pieces. Later on, there was never any communication from the orbiter to the Earth station. And the reason over here was the misunderstanding or not testing the units in a single unit, considering it as a single unit. One unit was tested differently, another unit was tested differently, and the proper communication wasn't there. So that actually resulted into their failure. This is a second case. Fine, just we have finished 2 case studies. We have actually crossed 20 minutes limit that we have set for ourselves. So what we will do, we will take a few more case studies in tomorrow's or upcoming lecture, and then we will actually start with the actual subject. Understanding this case study is really very important for convincing ourselves that why testing is important and why it should be done rigorously, meticulously, so that the failures that were happened in the past shouldn't happen in future. So on that note, we will stop over here. We'll meet again in the upcoming session. Till then, you can study software testing with whatever the reference book you have. ROM pattern is a good book that you can refer. Otherwise, there is ample amount of material available on the internet that you can refer. Till then, keep studying. Thank you.